Yeah.
He could have done that then.
Yeah, and this blockade, which as many on this show have noted, has a huge farcical nature to it, given the range of the area of operation that the U.S. Navy is conducting it in. All of that is to say is that there's a lot of room to just stop this, to go back to what already was a pretty disastrous status quo, which is having already fought, several over a month of war and come out of it only with a global economy in tatters, a military apparatus that's overspent, and an Iranian government and an Iranian society that is much more united than before. And an element to this, Professor Marandi, the two things are kind of happening at the same time. I feel like you have this high morale in Iran right now, both with the people and, of course, I'm hearing, you can confirm this more, I'm hearing that there are millions of people signing up to volunteer should there be any kind of ground operation, should there be any need for forces, in addition to those who are, operating the air defenses and operating the missile systems, etc. And then there's the other side of this, which is the Trump administration also is saying that in the coming days, as they're talking about negotiations in Pakistan, the coming days, the United States Navy is going to start boarding Iranian vessels. That Iranian vessels that are sailing through not only the Strait of Hormuz but out of it um, and back into it are going to be boarded, which is a major escalation, especially with a country that you're already at war with or already had been in active war with before the ceasefire. And you have this element, if you could comment on it, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which Yemen for a few days now has said they're waiting for the right time and they are ready whenever that right time comes to close the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which would be a major blow to the already burnt and overheated global economy from this war. So, your reactions to these things, because these are additional, I feel like, elements to what already is, I think, a catastrophic situation that is confronting, especially the U.S. Side of things, U.S. empire side of things. It's very, uh, I guess, it's very damning, to say the least. Your thoughts?
Well, if the United States starts boarding ships, Iran has all sorts of ships in the Persian Gulf that it can board too. And remember, these ships hold uh, material or energy or assets that largely belong to these five countries that are complicit in the war, and which without these countries would not have been able to happen. So Iran will retaliate. It's not going. This is not going to end well for anyone, and it's definitely not going to end well for the empire. So they can board a few ships here and there and steal Iranian grain or steal uh, assets of the Iranian people, but the Iranians will be forced to retaliate. And the Persian Gulf is stacked with ships right now, full. I mean, if you look at the images, they're just right behind, one after another. And of course, if there's a restart of the war, and then attacks are launched on infrastructure, those ships will all be destroyed too, just like the other infrastructure. I mean, just like the oil and gas and other infrastructure. It's just madness. It's like the United States is run by madmen who are either utterly compromised, or it's just the Zionist first people who are in full control and they don't care about the United States or the global economy or the Indian economy or the German economy or the Argentinian economy or anything like that. They just care about the Zionist regime and its expansionist policies and its genocidal policies, and so it's willing to sacrifice everyone. There's just no good scenario here. The only thing that we see, if we look ahead at the way things are going now, is utter destruction. And this is all just to help the Israeli regime. It's all about the Israeli regime. It's all about Zionism. The collapse of the global economy is seems to be coming uh, about. Why? Because of Israel.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean that appears to be the case, and Professor Marandi, there is a deep, I think, uh, contradiction occurring. Recent polls are showing that not some on 20% of Americans support how Donald Trump has handled the Iran situation, and yet you have the Trump administration continuing onward with this. You have, of course, Israel. Israel, interestingly enough, because of the cessation of the both sides of direct strikes on Iran, because that has stopped, Israel has tried to fade into the background, and of course, um, focus a lot of its attention on Lebanon and Hezbollah. But nonetheless, it does appear that Israel, despite not having the ability to fight any of this on its own, is placing a lot of pressure on the United States to continue this. Um, so yeah,
By the way,
your thoughts?
they're killing people in Gaza every day. They're
Yeah,
sniping
yeah.
kids. Just a couple of days ago, a girl in class, I think they just sniped her as she was sitting among her classmates. This is the Israeli regime, and in the West Bank, they continue to batter and beat and kill these colonizers. Continue to batter, beat, and kill Palestinians. I mean, it's not just Lebanon. Lebanon, right now, they're blowing up village after village, and of course, we had the slaughter that Iran forced them to stop. But it's what they're doing in Lebanon is ongoing. What they're doing in Gaza is ongoing, and what they're doing in the West Bank is ongoing.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and the uh, all of that is ongoing, and uh, uh, we are now on the precipice of another round of it's just so blatantly obvious that we're kind of coming back full circle to where we were just February 28th after the initial strikes. We're coming back to threats, which then led to strikes, which then led to Iran's response, its self defense, which caused a huge amount of damage to the region, to the regional actors involved in all of this, and the United States itself. So, uh, a repeat of this, though, I imagine, would have a cumulative effect. Um, you said that you believe that a Great Depression is coming. How does that square with a kinetic war, though? In the past, there was only one time, I believe, where there was a real depression occurring at the same time as a major nation, a confrontation between nations, and that was World War II. There was a depression happening, and the depression was not over when World War II started, and it had a major impact on the outcome of that war. So, your thoughts on how uh, you know, the infusion of an economic disaster that is still building and still there and will be pushed to the edge if the U.S. starts again, how that will affect the outcome, because that economic depressions affect everybody, but Iran has been in the position of being mainly iced out of and kept out of a large part of this global economy, and has had to, even mainstream media, think tanks, all of them have had to acknowledge, has essentially developed a pretty self-sufficient economy, potentially prepared to also take blows that the global economy hits. Likely, the U.S. is not in that position. So, your thoughts on this?
Well, there's no doubt that the war has caused significant damage to Iran, but Iran is a huge country also, um, and a future war will create more damage. But what the damage that's being done to the global economy is not something that happens within seconds, like when a missile strikes a building and the building comes down. When the right now we're seeing the tip of the iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg is the rising energy costs and the rising food costs that we're seeing here and there. Some places it's worse, some places it's not as bad for a host of reasons, because of the supply chains, because of the fact that some countries don't have reserves, some countries have different needs than other countries. But in any case, it is getting worse. But we are going to reach a point where within some say, and I don't have, I'm not again be certain of this, but it is said that within the next 2 weeks we're going to have a new the crisis is going to reach a new level, and then within 4 weeks it's going to become a full blown crisis. And so we're just, as I said, we're right now we're witnessing the tip of the iceberg, but when it hits, it's like an atomic bomb. It's like multiple atomic bombs because factories will shut down. A missile is not going to hit the factories, but those factories will no longer be functioning. Economies will be shutting down, and again, this and agriculture will be badly affected. We'll probably have global hunger. We'll probably have tens of millions of people, if not more, on the move. I mean, imagine if countries begin to face food crisis, people will move and they'll go to the traditional places that they used to go to, and even though those places will be on the verge of collapse too. I mean, the way in which the world is going to be impacted by what the Israeli regime and Trump are doing is
Person Marandi, I'm just gonna interrupt just because. Oh yeah, okay. I think you're back. I think when I interrupt, you actually come back.
okay.
So that's a good thing. That's a good
Okay.
thing. Yeah, you were saying that the impact
So
of this, and then you kept going.
yeah, so the impact of this is going to be beyond anyone's imagination. Hunger, factories shut down, businesses shut down, unemployment across the world, in the West and the global majority. People will be on the move in probably the tens of millions. It's just mind boggling. And all of this is being carried out because a genocidal regime is forcing the United States to launch war. This genocidal regime with US support launched the war against Iran and lost in 12 days,
Mm,
even though it
right.
carried out a blitzkrieg attack and had full US support. It lost that war in 12 days. It's just not capable of fighting a war against Iran. So now the United States has to come in. They fought for 40 days. They failed. And now
Mm,
they're saying, no, we have to go and wipe out the civilization, obliterate the country, send them back to the Stone Age. And again, instead of being outraged, outlets like the the Washington Post say assassinate the negotiators. This is what we're today dealing with in the West.
yeah. Yeah, and Person Marandi, I'm in China, and I talked to I know he's I think a mutual contact of yours too, Zhang Weiwei, and he was very clear. And usually what John Weiwei says is a very informed a type of clarity, and he was very clear that you know a lot has been made of China and Iran, and recently there's been rumors that China was a major player in pushing Iran to the ceasefire table and to agree to the ceasefire. And he said no, he does not believe that that happened at all, and that actually um, China's position is that of course it doesn't want to see instability, it doesn't want, but at the same time it is not afraid of the consequences of what is going on here and won't interfere with that, which is a general principle of China, for every kind of conflict and every war that occurs in the world. But um, with that, it seems like that's also angered the United States, because what has Trump always done during his tenure this time around? He's looked at both China and Russia and said, "You need to help me solve things. Russia, you need to help me solve the Ukraine conflict, which I am the major party to. The U.S. is the major party to the reason why it's even happening." And then, of course, he always looks to China. China, you need to help solve Ukraine. You need to help solve this and that problem for us, or we're going to tariff you, or this kind of thing. And now it seems like the target is, okay, we need to hit Iran, we need to wage war on Iran, and oh yeah, we'll reveal what the real motive here is too, which is to try to cut off the entirety of the multipolar world, with of course China being one of the, if not the most important economic pillar of this. So, your thoughts on the global ramifications of where we are now, how, especially outside of the region, how this is set to impact the multipolar world, Iran with its biggest friends, China and Russia, and where all of this stands to fall on the multipolar world. And some say it benefits, some say it hurts, but I think the picture is pretty nuanced and complex. So, your thoughts on this? Oh, you were muted. Hold on one second, Professor Marandi. Start
No, that was
again.
sorry. That was me. That was
Okay.
me. I
Okay.
did it on purpose to. So um, I thought it would help the connection. So I think it's going to be devastating for the global economy, for the majority and the West. No one is going to be spared from this catastrophe. But I do think it's going to bring an end to the empire. Already, I think this is a turning point, and the United States has succeeded in destroying its image over the past 2.5 years, its credibility. It's shown itself to be military incapable, and people are shocked across the world uh, that Iran was able to stand up to the United States in this way, including in China. Many
Hmm.
of my Chinese friends and colleagues and people who are experts in the field in China during the past uh, few weeks have been telling me that in China that their views of Tehran have evolved completely because people across the world were influenced by Western narratives on Iran. They believe the nonsense that the so-called regime, as they love to say in the West, is unpopular, that it's imploding, that it's corrupt, that its leaders were hated, and so on. All the narratives that we've been hearing for that it's anti-woman, it beats kids. I don't know. Cuts. What was it that Trump said? He cuts kids in half, or exactly the thing that the Israelis do. He was saying that they cut kids in half, or something like that. I know this psychopath.
Something barbaric. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so a lot of people influenced by Western think tanks and Western media and Western officials thought that Iran would fall, and
Hmm.
when it didn't, everyone was shocked and surprised. And people across the world have been contacting me. I've been overwhelmed with speaking with people across the world, with media. I'm running on empty right now. And but the point is that people are fascinated about Iran. They want to know more about Iran. That's why on all these shows there's not much material out there for people to read. And I said on your show and on other shows to read Going to Tehran, the book by the Leverets, and people are interested in about Imam Hussein, about Ayatollah Khamenei, about Ashura, about Iran's history, about Iranian civilization. Interest towards Iran, Hezbollah, the axis of resistance has grown, and contempt for Zionism and for Israel and for Trump. And sadly, the United States, even though most Americans are opposed to this madness, but contempt for the United States is growing. That is not good news. None of that is good news for an empire. And ultimately, when the global economy collapses, people are going to remember who brought it about. It is the Israeli regime in the United States, just like they were the ones, along with the West, that brought about the genocide in Gaza, that enabled the genocidal acts in Lebanon, brought about the destruction of Syria and the rise of Al Qaeda and all that. They will remember that their own lifestyles were infinitely impacted or heavily impacted by a Zionist regime that was willing to destroy the global economy so that it could just so that it could just wipe out people and take their land.
Mm. Yeah, in our last couple minutes here, Professor Marandi, it is very clear in this very large country that I'm in, the largest, really the largest country in the world, especially economically, um, that nobody thinks that the U.S. is winning. Nobody, and everyone, everyone that I've spoken to is very much. There's no uh, antipathy toward Iran, and there's a lot of there's surprise, but there's I think yeah there's a lot of like awe over how Iran has done this, and I think Iran did something that's very difficult to do in this day and age, which is to in China, Deng Xiaoping said hide your strength and bide your time, and Iran had done that to a shocking level, like a shocking in a time period where it's very hard, especially when you have entire entities, colonial entities like Israel and the United States as a imperial albatross, invest so much money in intelligence, so much money on spying, so much money in infiltration, so much money and time on all of that, and still Iran, they admit it. They were surprised. They didn't know this was going to happen. Hell, even Hezbollah, which is right next door to Israel, is what did Israel say when Hezbollah entered the war? Oops, we were so surprised that they could hit so hard. We had no idea that they had this kind of artillery, that they had this kind of missile systems. No idea, and now they do. But
And the
I think this
resilience,
is,
the
yeah,
resilience
exactly,
behind that which is the real thing, the
right,
resistance, the resilience of the axis of
right,
resistance, that I think is the most extraordinary thing. If you have, I mean, the weapons still don't compare to what the empire has. But if
no,
but you can have even better weapons, but still, if you don't have the resilience, the resistance, the motivation, the faith, then
hmm
they will all fail you.
yeah, yeah, and and that's seemingly where we are now. And your final thoughts, because yeah, this is a real inflection moment. We'll probably talk again soon, depending on what happens in the coming days. It seems like the United States is in a really bad. It's a really bad street. This is probably in terms of a direct war where the U.S. cannot help but be very directly involved and climb an escalation ladder like this because Iran has been able to defend itself and stand up to each and every single blow that it's tried to land. Um, it seems like an unprecedented moment, and as you said before the show, the world will change. Any thoughts? Or the world will change incredibly. So, your final thoughts as we close out here.
Well, I don't know what will happen in the days ahead. The United States may strike tonight. That's just how they do things, like the Israelis. But and we may not have electricity, or I may have problems with the internet, or other problems. So my what I basically would like people to remember is that we're all responsible, and we all have to be active, and we all have to stand up against this evil empire and Zionism. And I think that while it looks very bad right now for the world, but we all have to keep pushing. And it's not just the axis of resistance that has to resist, it is the broader resistance that exists across the globe. Whether it's boycotts of goods, or whether it's protests, or whether it's putting pressure on local governments to halt cooperation, or to halt purchasing goods, or to distance themselves from the empire. We're all responsible to do whatever it is that we can do, but we have to remain optimistic, and no one should feel guilty for what their government does, as long as they are doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great note to end on. Indeed, you know, we are in a moment where I think the mask is off. The United States as the empire with who controls it, the Epstein class, the oligarchs, the elites, this kind of I guess you call it transnational Zionist, imperial, warmongers. They are in desperate straits, and yeah, we truly do not have control over, especially those of us in the West, over what they do. What we have control over is how we try to change that fact, and that is, I think, going to be a huge point of contention and something we will have to reckon with in the days and weeks to come. So everybody, Professor Marandi joined. We did really good here, despite me having no VPN right now, because the VPN companies are absolutely in complete crisis. I have a suspicion, Professor Marandi, it's the war, that it's the consequence, the economic consequences of this war that actually have these companies. The dates are very suspicious. April 8th was when it seems like a lot of these companies have made major cutbacks and say they have outage issues everywhere. And that's my hunch. But nevertheless, I think we're going to see major impact on all industries everywhere should this continue. So, President Rondi, thanks so much for joining. We're going to head out together. I want to thank everyone who gave a super chat. They were very generous, especially thanking President Rondi, who we want to see him at home. So do your part, everybody. Look, he's at home right now. He doesn't have to be in hiding because the U.S. is bombing his country. So be sure to not only hit the like button, support this show,
Okay.